Okay, today we're going to work on the 5.3, and we did this in class on Friday or Wednesday. So I just want to make sure I go through this with you guys, letting you guys know how to do this one as well. This tomorrow, next week, we're going to actually have a quiz on either the two. Let's see here next week, so it's Tuesday and Friday. So let me go through this, give you guys an example of how to do these things. Basically, this is exactly the same as section 5.2, except for the problems get a little bit more challenging. So let's get her started. So we have the different methods of factoring, special cases. Special cases I don't treat any differently, finding all solutions. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So what we start off here is we're going to start off with this particular question. And we have to go through and we have to factor this. Okay, so 6x to the third plus 15x squared plus 9x. So as I'm thinking about graphing this, first of all, I notice that the degree is 3, so that means it's odd. So degree is 3. The leading coefficient happens to be 6, which is positive. So that means this is odd and positive. So that means my ends are going to be there. So that's the first thing. Now the next thing is I look at how to factor this. And quite honestly, I really don't like to factor things that have a 3 there. I really like to factor things that have 3 terms, polynomials that have 3 terms. That just makes it easy for me to do. That's what I call normal. Okay, so I don't mind 3 terms, but I really don't like the 3. So right away I start thinking, can I get rid of them? As I look at this, I see that there's an x in each term, so I can factor out an x. All right, so that means I can divide each one of these things by x. What that does is that just reduces the exponents for the variables down by 1. Now, 6. I really want this number out front, if I can, to make it be a 1. But if I can get it smaller, that means less choices. It's easy for me to factor. As I look at this, 6, 15, and 9, those all play pretty nice to each other, but they're all factors of 3. So I can divide each one of these things by 3 as well. So that means this is 3, this is 5, and this is 2. So I end up with 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so that's the first step. I've got it factored out. I got that common one there. Now I have to factor what's left here. Now the way I factor things that have a 2 or anything other than a 1 is I look at what times, so 2 times 3 multiplies to make 6, and then their factors add up to make 5. So I go through my factors of 6. I got 1 is 6, but 1 plus 6 is 7, so that's not it. And then I have 2 and 3, which happen to add up to make 5. So I know that my answer is going to be 2 and 3. So let's start putting this together. 3x comes along. When I factor by grouping, I bring this straight down. And then I pick one of these factors that work, and I put an x with it. Now I put down the other factor that works, and then the last term. The 3x comes along for a ride. Now I look at these two first terms. What can I take out of both those two? I can take out a 2x. I'm left with x plus 1. 2x, I can cross off the 2's. The x's go down by 1. 2x and 2x. 2x divided by 2x is just simply 1. Then I look at the back. Well, I think I can factor out a 3. Now, I always want this and this to be the same. So far that looks like it. So far it looks like I'm doing this the right way. Okay, the 3x comes along for a ride. Now I call this my pairs and my spares. So I have a pair here. So they come. I write down my pairs. And then I write down my spares. So now it's factored. Now I set each factor equal to 0. And I only have to set this leading one up here equal to 0 if there's a variable there. Any factor that has a variable, it's set equal to 0. So divide this, and it still ends up to be 0. This one I'm going to subtract 1, so x equals -1. This one I almost always have to write out, so I believe it ends up to be 2x is -3. X is going to be -3/2. So those are my targets. I go through 0, I go right through it. I go through -1, and I go through -3/2. All these are throughs because they're only showing up once. So up, down, back up again. There you go. Okay, really similar to what we did in the day before. The difference is we have much more challenging factoring going on. All right. Now this one asks me to factor by grouping. Now anytime I see 4 terms, I gotta think factor by grouping. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 terms. I gotta think about factor by grouping. Okay, first check: is there an x in all of them? There are in the first 3, but not in the last one, so that doesn't work. Can I divide all these by the same number? Well, I can divide them all by 1, but that doesn't really change anything. So right now, this is what I have. So let's look at the first 2. I can take out an x squared. I divide this by x squared, and I divide this by x squared. These go away. And let's see here, I'm dividing it by x squared, so that means that this is a 2. When I look at the back half, well, let's divide out a -3. When I divide out a negative, that means this sign flips, that's why it's a positive, and this side flips, that's why it's 2. Okay, now I'm back to my pairs and my spares. Okay, so x is -2, and let's see, x squared is 3, take the square root of both sides, x equals the square root of 3, might as well put a plus or minus there, need it, ball comes up, ball comes down, there's 2 answers here, and this will end up plus or minus. Now notice, this one has 3 answers. Just trying to find the eraser. There it is. Okay, has 3 answers. I can tell that it has 3 answers by when I first look at this. It has a power of 3, so I should have 3 answers. The square root of 3 is not a very pretty answer, but it works. Okay, so let's see. So as I look at this, the degree is 3, the leading coefficient is positive. Low on the left, high on the right. I gotta go through -2. I gotta go through the negative square root of 3 and positive square root of 3. All right, so through it, through it. You'll get a lot of these whoop-de-doo graphs like this. They're all very similar. Okay, so that one was a little bit more challenging. All right, so now I look at this. Again, 4 terms, don't really like it. That tells me grouping. X, 2, so I can't reduce it. All right, while I'm thinking of it, let's think about my graph here. Even, odd. Actually, let's go positive, odd. Positive, odd is still in the same spot. Down low on the left, up high on the right. Okay, so now let's graph this, or let's factor this. The first term, I can divide by 2x squared. So that means this goes down by 1, this goes away, it's just x. Divide this one, those go away, and -4 divided by 2 is -2. Okay, right here. Now here's the problem. There's nothing to take out there. So what do? Well, I don't take out a 1. Sorry, my 2 got a little shaky there. Now, pairs and spares. X minus 2 is my pair. 2x squared plus 1 is my spares. There we go. X equals 2. This one's a little bit more complicated. Oof. All right, so I divide both sides by this. X squared is equal to -1. I take the square root of both sides. X is equal to, and unfortunately I can't have a -1 there. Now, when I do this, what we learned is if it's a negative root, negative in here, and I got to deal with it, it's going to be the square root of -1 is I. Uh-oh. So this particular one has plus or minus I and 2. I can't graph I. So there you go. That's going to be my answer for this one. That was a little bit more hairy. Now, this is a look-alike. Okay, if you notice, this has 3 terms to it, so that makes me think that it's going to be a normal one. But then I look at this and I see a power of 4 and a power of 2. Well, if this was x squared and minus x, that wouldn't be a problem. Because those, well, no, because that's how they work. But if you notice, this is even, this is half of it. Same thing as x squared and x. So let's see if we can factor this. Here. That's got to multiply, make -4, and add up to make -3. How about -4 and 1? Move the x over to the other side. That was a short one. Plus or minus. Now, because there's 2, plus or minus 2. Okay, because there's 2, I'm going to get positive and negative. Over here, x squared is equal to -1. There's that thing again. X is equal to, I believe it's plus or minus I. Okay, again, can't graph this one because I don't have a way to graph I. It would have, though, been up here and up here. Obviously, we'd have one at 2, have one here at -2, positive 2 and -2. Can't graph that one. All right. 4 terms. Lots of things here. But look, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can take out an x. Means I'm left with x to the third plus 2x squared minus 16x minus 32 equals 0. Okay, now let's do this factor by grouping thing. Let's take on x squared. I'm left with x plus 2. This, let's take on -16. I'm left with x plus 2. X comes along. Here's my pair. Here's my spare. Okay, so far so good. So this is x equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, x equals -2. This one, what I would do for this is I would push this over to, I would set it up this way. And I would just, hopefully you just jump into it and you drive like you normally do. But for this one, x squared, well, on the drive, you do what you normally do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 16 to both sides. Take square root of both sides. X is equal to plus or minus 4. Okay, this one asks for 4 answers. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I got them all. Okay, so this one will go up here and here because it's that. I don't put my marks on here, so I got -4, -2, 0, 2, and 4. Going through each one of these. Okay, well, that's basically what we had last week. And it's the beginning of section 5.2. We're going to have another day of 5.2 next week. Hopefully, you guys will all be back by then. You guys are all doing well. You guys have yourselves a good day.